Create. Let me ask you something straight up. When was the last time you caught yourself waiting by your phone, hoping for a message, doubting your worth? Create. Wondering if you said too much or not enough. Be honest. Because if you're doing that, you're not living like a queen. You're operating from fear. Create. And I'm here to tell you that version of you. That's not who you really are. You're not meant to chase. You're not meant to beg. Create. You're meant to reign. But until you stop settling, until you stop begging for love, attention, validation, you will never step into the power that's already yours. So it's time to stop explaining yourself and start owning who the hell you are. Queens don't beg. They decide. They reign. There's a moment in every woman's life when she realizes she's done begging. She's done explaining. She's done contorting herself into versions that feel like costumes just to be accepted. That moment is the beginning of her reign. Create. And it's not loud. It's not dramatic. Quiet. It's powerful. It happens in the silence of a morning when she wakes up and says, "No more." She doesn't scream. She doesn't send a long message. She just shifts. That's the power of a queen. She doesn't need to ask anyone for her place. She creates it. Begging is rooted in the lie that you are not enough. When you beg, you believe someone else holds your value, your worth, your validation, and that belief is the cage. Create. That belief is the very thing that keeps you stuck in cycles of disappointment. Because every time you try to prove you're worthy, create, you forget that you already are. You already have the crown. But a queen doesn't wear her crown to convince others. It's a symbol for her. She knows what she brings. She doesn't diminish it to fit into smaller spaces or weaker hands. You were never meant to chase anything. Especially not love. The right love doesn't need to be convinced. It doesn't need a sales pitch. It sees you. It respects you. It meets you. Create. But you don't even get close to that until you stop lowering yourself for the sake of keeping people who don't know how to hold you down. Create. And that's where the real shift happens. It's when you stop asking, "Why don't they choose me?" and start declaring, "I choose me." That's the difference between a girl still learning her worth and a queen who embodies it. Letting go doesn't mean you're heartless. Create. It means you're done handing your heart to people who drop it down. Create. It means you're done explaining your standards to people who have no intention of rising to meet them. Create. You realize the most powerful thing you can ever say is nothing at all. Silence becomes your answer. Distance becomes your clarity. You no longer seek closure from people who gave you confusion. That is the moment you stop begging. That is the moment you start reigning. And when you reign, something magical happens. People feel your energy shift. You stop showing up where you're not valued. You stop repeating yourself. You stop overgiving. Create. You stop breaking your own heart to save someone else's comfort. You learn how to sit with yourself, rebuild yourself, love yourself. Create. You start holding your head higher, not out of arrogance, but because you remember who you are. You build yourself brick by brick with every boundary you set, every no you say, every step you take away from anything that makes you feel small. You don't owe anyone access to you. Access is earned. Energy is expensive. Time is valuable. A queen doesn't pour into people who leave her empty. She doesn't entertain what drains her. She doesn't water dead plants. She cultivates her kingdom. She surrounds herself with those who uplift, respect, and honor her presence. Not just when it's convenient for them. Create. But because they genuinely recognize her power. And the best part, you don't need to announce your reign. You don't need to post it. Create. You don't need to prove it. It shows in how you carry yourself, in what you no longer tolerate, in what you quietly walk away from. That's what changes the game. That's what shifts your entire life. The moment you stop begging, not just for love, but for time, attention, respect. That's the moment you start living like a queen. You stop explaining. You start embodying. You reign. When a queen walks into a room, she doesn't need to announce who she is. Her presence speaks. Her energy leads. And it's not because she's arrogant. It's because she knows who she is. Create. She's earned her power, not from the approval of others, but from every moment she chose herself in silence. From every heartbreak she survived. Create. From every tear she wiped herself. From every time she stood up when life tried to knock her down. That's where her reign begins. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows where no one was clapping, where she decided, create. I will not be defined by this. You don't become a queen by begging someone to love you. You become a queen by loving yourself, so completely that anyone who steps into your life either adds peace or gets removed. Create. There's no room for games in her kingdom. There's no room for emotional scraps. Because she knows what it costs to lose herself trying to hold someone else. And she's not paying that price anymore. The truth is, people will treat you how you allow them to. If you beg, if you plead, if you chase, create, you're telling them, I'm not enough without your presence. But you are. You were enough before them, and you'll be enough after. If, though it, then create. You don't need someone's love to prove you're lovable. You don't need their time to prove you matter. You don't need their attention to feel whole. Create. That's your work. That's your power. That's your reign. And when you understand that, create, you stop handing over your crown every time someone shows interest in you. You see, it's easy to beg when you don't see your own value. It's easy to think that if you say the right thing, if you look a certain way, if you stay quiet enough or loyal enough, someone will finally choose you. To shut down, create. But here's the wake-up call: you don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself so fiercely that anyone who can't see your worth becomes irrelevant. Their silence is no longer your confusion. It's your clarity. Their distance is no longer your pain. It's your redirection. Create. Reigning isn't about control over others. It's about self-command. It's about learning how to sit in your solitude and feel whole. Create. It's about making peace with your past and owning every chapter. Not hiding the pain, not pretending you've never stumbled, but standing tall anyway. Because a queen doesn't need to be perfect. She just needs to be real. And that realness, that truth, that self-respect, that's her crown. Create. And guess what happens when you stop begging? The wrong people fall away. The wrong energy fades. The confusion clears. Create. Because what's not meant for you will always leave once you stop chasing it. And what is meant for you, it finds you while you're too busy building. Create. Growing. And glowing to even be looking. That's the irony. You don't attract peace by searching for it. You attract it by becoming it. Create. So if you're waiting for someone to see your value, stop. See it for yourself. If you're hoping they'll come back, pause. Create. Ask yourself why you'd want to go back to something that didn't recognize royalty when it stood in front of them. You are not desperate. Create. You are not replaceable. You are not an option. You are the whole kingdom. And the second you stop begging, you take back everything that was already yours. Your peace. Your power. Your presence. That's when you begin to reign. Not because someone handed it to you, but because you finally remembered who you are. And when a queen remembers her worth, the entire world shifts. Not for her, but because of her. There is a version of you that no longer cries herself to sleep, wondering why they didn't stay. Shut down. Create. There's a version of you that no longer waits for the bare minimum and calls it love. That version doesn't chase, doesn't beg, create, doesn't break down over someone's silence. That version reigns. She's powerful, unshakable, clear. Create. And the only reason you haven't met her yet is because you've been too busy trying to be chosen by people who never deserved access to your heart in the first place. Create. But the truth is, you don't need to become her. You already are her. You just need to let go of everything that made you forget. Create. Every time you lower your standards to keep someone in your life, you hand them your crown. Every time you silence your voice to avoid conflict, create, you give away your power. Every time you second guess your worth based on how someone else treats you, you disconnect from the queen within. Create. And it's not your fault. You were never taught that your value is intrinsic. You were taught to prove yourself, to please, to perform. Create. But queens don't perform. They present. They don't chase. They choose. You don't win someone's heart by sacrificing your own. Create. You don't build love by abandoning yourself. And if someone only stays when you're quiet, agreeable, and small, to shut down, create, then they're not staying for you. They're staying for the version of you that fits their comfort zone. But you weren't born to shrink. Create. You weren't born to please. You were born to lead. And that means being willing to disappoint the wrong people in order to live in alignment with your truth. Walking away is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Detachment is not coldness. Create. These are the tools of a woman who knows that peace is more valuable than attention. Create. A woman who has learned the hard way that love doesn't require self-abandonment. The woman who no longer asks, "What's wrong with me?" and instead declares, "Create. I will no longer give my best to those who don't value it." The day you stop begging is the day you stop bleeding for people who would never bandage you. Create. You stop justifying disrespect. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop making excuses for people's inconsistency. Create. Because you realize that someone's inability to see your worth is not your responsibility. It's their limitation. And you refuse to live small to make others comfortable anymore. It's not about being ruthless. It's about being rooted. Rooted in your value. Rooted in your standards. Rooted in your peace. You begin to filter everything through a new lens. Does this honor me? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter how much history, chemistry, or potential is there, it's a no. Queens don't negotiate with their peace. They protect it. And yes, create people will call you too much. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant, cold, but you haven't changed. You've awakened. To shut down. Create. You've stopped watering deserts hoping for flowers. You've stopped setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Create. You've stopped mistaking chaos for passion. You've stopped begging for love and started embodying it. The moment you understand that your energy is sacred, everything shifts. You realize your time is a gift. Your attention is currency. Your presence is powerful. And from that place, you no longer chase what doesn't chase you. You no longer beg. You no longer explain. You just walk. You rise. You reign. Because you were never meant to be anyone's backup plan, second choice, or temporary fix. You are the entire crown, the entire standard, the entire kingdom. Create. And the moment you start acting like it, the world begins to treat you accordingly. Create. There's a deep shift that happens when a woman finally decides she's had enough. It's not loud. It's not angry. It's not even emotional. It's calm. It's clear. It's decisive. That shift is the death of the version of her that begged, waited, and doubted. Is to shut down. Create. It's the moment she realizes that chasing love is not love. That begging for someone's attention, affection, time, or effort isn't power. It's self-abandonment. And when that version of her dies, the queen is born. The one who doesn't beg. She reigns. To shut down. Create. You don't need to force what's aligned. You don't have to beg for what's meant for you. Down. Create. And you definitely don't have to keep proving yourself to people who only show up when it's convenient. The queen in you knows this. Create. She doesn't try to make others see her worth. She sees it for herself. She doesn't adjust her crown to fit someone else's idea of who she should be. She simply is. She walks into a room with grace, with strength, with a presence that doesn't need explanation. Because she's done begging. Done explaining, done waiting. And the moment she stops begging, she gets her power back. Create. She sees how much time and energy she spent trying to hold on to people who were never holding her back. She sees how many times she lowered her voice. Create. Her needs, her truth just to keep peace that never truly existed. And she makes a choice. Not just to walk away from them, but to walk back to herself. That's the true power of a queen. She doesn't seek revenge. She doesn't play games. She simply removes herself. Not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Create. There's something incredibly magnetic about a woman who knows she doesn't have to beg for love. She becomes a mirror. She shows others what self-worth looks like. She shows others how to treat her. Not by demanding it, but by embodying it. Her boundaries aren't walls. Create. They're standards. And she doesn't apologize for having them. Because a queen understands this truthing: what you tolerate, you endorse. Create. And she's not in the business of endorsing anything that dims her light or disrespects her soul. She understands that love that has to be chased isn't love. It's a performance. A constant audition for someone's attention, affection, and time. And the moment she realizes that, she stops auditioning, she stops clinging, she stops convincing. 'Cause the right love doesn't need persuasion. It simply meets her where she is, as she is. And she knows this: a connection that makes her question her worth is too expensive. The cost is too high. And no matter how deep the feelings run, no matter how strong the history is, her peace will always be more important. She no longer fears being alone, because she's discovered how powerful solitude is. She's learned how to fill her own cup, how to create joy from within. how to be her own validation. And in that self-sufficiency, she becomes more attractive, not because she's trying, but because she's aligned. Aligned with herself, aligned with truth, aligned with worth. And she doesn't just reign in relationships, she reigns in her career, in her choices, in her mindset. She stops waiting for permission to shine. She stops making herself small to fit into rooms she's outgrown. She builds new tables. She writes her own rules. She honors her intuition over outside opinions. She moves with purpose, not permission. Because once a woman realizes she is the source of love, of peace, of power, she stops begging for someone else to give her what she already has. She becomes it. She reigns, and that version of her, the one who no longer begs for love, for time, for recognition, that version of her is unstoppable. That is the woman the world can't ignore. That is the queen who never settles again.